We're going to go over 3 different exercises to help with your hip mobility. This will increase your power and will increase your strength that you have on your bike to use your glutes and use your hips better. Because if you have limited range of motion, then you're not going to actually access that muscle to use as well. Research has studied that having that mobility that you need gives you the strength that you need. Otherwise, neurologically, your brain doesn't trust that it can use it and use those muscles as well because you're lacking in your mobility. The first exercise is going to work on your adductors and also your hip hinge and your hip flexion. As you do this exercise, allow that leg to just relax out to the side. You are going to be in kind of a leg out tripod type position, and you are going to rock back and forth, allowing that leg that's out to actually get that nice strong stretch. The leg that's your base stance leg, this leg is going to be going into more of that flexion. It's also going to train you to do more of a hip hinge in this versus just rocking back and sagging down and losing all stability. Allow that hip hinge to happen. If you find that you're getting sort of impingement symptoms or pinching symptoms in that base leg, kind of tip it out to the side, foot comes in, knee points more outward, and then you're going to rock back and forth there. Now you're in a more externally rotated position with your hip, and that will give you more of that glute stretch. And also, if you have any actual impingement or bony blocks that you're dealing with in your hip, then this will help relieve that and make it not an issue for you to actually go in and use this stretch. Rock back and forth like 10 to 12 times on one side, switch legs, rock back and forth. You can play with where your other foot is angled in, whether it's just straight to the side, whether you want to move it a little bit more forward, and or if you want to move it a little bit farther back to have less stretch on that actual hip. You can also, if you find this aggravates your knee, you can put your other knee up onto more of a base, but I think that you should be fine with just having your foot out as that tripod. The second stretch we're going to go into is a 90-90 stretch. Many of y'all, I'm sure, have heard about this. One of the things that you can do in this 90-90 stretch is that you'll have your front leg out in a 90-90 position, and you'll have your back leg back in a 90-90 position, as you see here. If you can't get into this position as a whole to then start to do the movement, then take a yoga block, take a rolled up towel, shove it underneath of your butt, and that raises your butt up so you don't have quite as much hip flexion as you're trying to get this rotation. Usually we have more limitations in our internal rotation and external rotation as we increase our flexion in that. Sometimes it's the opposite, so bear with me. I'm just going to go with the majority here. As you're going through this, now that your butt is up, you're going to rock to one side and seat that leg down, get that butt cheek down. You can either lean over into it and or look the other side, get that butt cheek down and lean forward to get that nice stretch. You're going to rock side to side in this position, allowing that movement to happen of internal rotation and external rotation of those hips. Again, use that bolster support underneath your butt if you find that you can't quite get as low into this position. As you get better at this, you'll take out more of that support, you'll unroll more of your towel, and so you'll start to get lower and lower into the floor where you can get more range of motion, more internal rotation, and more external rotation. You obviously are going to do this on both sides, where the other foot goes forward, the other foot goes back in this. I would probably rock side to side 10 times, then switch sides, rock side to side 10 times. It's a very slow, methodical stretch and stretch, stretch and stretch. You're not holding any of these positions because it's a joint. Joints like movement and mobility. They don't like sustained stretches unless you're actually stretching the muscle. Muscles love that sustained hold and stretch that turns them off, makes them relax, and then they start to stretch in that. And that's why it feels better and you can stretch more as you hold that stretch and move. You're trying to mobilize your joint here and not actually mobilizing your muscles or stretching your muscles here. Okay, that's the difference in this and why you're kind of going back and forth or in and out of the actual stretch. The other and final exercise for this is going to be more of a joint specific mobility for you. And so you're going to need a long, stretchy band. These bands are more of what they call pull-up assist bands. I use them to help with my clients if they're traveling or they don't have access to heavier weights, or they just don't have the money to afford the heavier weights. You can buy a pack of bands, and it is so useful for so many different things. So what you're going to do, you're going to attach this into the door. You are going to pull it to the side. And this is going to basically, as you think about your ball and socket, you are wrapping that band around. And so it's distracting your hip from the actual joint, from the socket. And so it's pulling that out. Now, it's not going to be doing that much. It's just very slight because we have our muscles and a lot of other things keeping our hip in the socket, which is good because we don't want it to dislocate. And then you're going to be doing that same kind of hip movement forward and back. And you can see and test which angle you like the most. Some of us are built a little bit different, and some of us like and need stretches in a little bit different patterning. And so as you're doing this stretch, start of it pulling from the side, and then slowly move where your feet are more towards where the band is attached, and slowly move where your head is more towards where the band is attached. You'll find an area that you like the most as you do this back and forth hip hinge movement. You're also going to work on holding the weight in more of your other leg and your arms and letting that leg relax. You're going to try to let it just be this floppy appendage that can actually let that hip distraction happen as you're going through the range of motion. Go back and forth maybe 10 times, 15 times, and then take a break. You're welcome to do the other side as well, if you feel like the other side is as tight as well. I hope these were super helpful. If you need more hints about how to strengthen your glutes, look up here for this video, because usually if we have hip issues, as I said in the first part of this video, then we also have glute issues, and we need to make sure our glutes are working. And it's a great follow-up for helping our hip range of motion actually stick and stay is by using our glutes right afterwards. Cheers, y'all.